Happy Friday and welcome to Overnight Defense. I'm Rebecca Keel, and here's your nightly guide to the latest developments at the Pentagon, on Capitol Hill and beyond. Click here to subscribe if you don't get our newsletter. The top line: we know that the confirmation fight over Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh was by far the biggest story of the week. But there were still some important and interesting defense stories going on here and abroad. Overnight Defense has a recap for those who were too caught up in the confirmation drama to catch these stories the first time. Suspicious letters: a Navy veteran from Utah was arrested this week on suspicion of sending letters containing a suspicious substance to President Trump. Donald John Trump Heitkamp releases ad explaining Kavanaugh no vote. Trump mocks Al Franken over resignation. He folded like a wet rag. O'Rourke not interested in Obama endorsement. More on Defense Secretary James Norman Mattis. Overnight Defense: Trump approves new counterterrorism strategy. Mattis calls Russian arms treaty violations untenable. Trump may fire Air Force chief over Space Force. Report says Mattis: Russia's violation of arms control treaty untenable. General Electric's version of accountability should be used in Afghanistan. More. William Clyde Allen, 3 of Logan, Utah, was arrested Wednesday after the Pentagon and Secret Service confirmed the day before that they had intercepted the letters. Chief Pentagon spokeswoman Dana White said Wednesday that multiple letters mailed to Defense Secretary James Mattis and Chief of Naval Operations John Richardson contained castor seeds, from which the toxin ricin is derived. Allen had his first court appearance Friday, where he was officially charged with threatening to use a biological toxin as a weapon. Iran pressure: the Trump administration ramped up its pressure on Iran in several ways this week. After an international court ruling based on a pre-Iranian Revolution treaty, Secretary of State Mike Richard Pompeo Khomeini blames U.S. for sensitive time for people of Iran. The Hill's morning report: Kavanaugh, Ford saga approaches bitter. And Overnight Defense: Trump ramps up pressure on Iran. International courts: arrest made after suspicious letters sent to Trump. Mattis: U.S. to offer NATO cyber capabilities. More announced the United States is terminating the treaty. During the same press conference, Pompeo accused Iran of being the origin of attacks on a U.S. consulate in Iraq, saying with elaboration that U.S. intelligence on the matter is solid. On Thursday, the Trump administration also unveiled a new counterterrorism strategy, and during the unveiling, National Security Advisor John Bolton focused on Iran's support for terrorist groups. China tensions: the Trump administration also took its pressure campaign against China to new levels. In a speech Thursday, Vice President Pence accused China of an anti-Trump campaign. China has initiated an unprecedented effort to influence American public opinion, the 2018 elections, and the environment leading into the 2020 presidential elections, Pence said. To put it bluntly, President Trump's leadership is working. China wants a different American president, Pence said. The military this week also accused China of an unsafe and unprofessional encounter during the Navy's recent Freedom of Navigation operation in the South China Sea. The Navy said a Chinese warship got within 45 yards of the USS Decatur. The military did not release images of the incident, as it sometimes does when it's looking to call out unsafe behavior. But a maritime blog called G-Captain published photos that were later authenticated by several news outlets. The INF Treaty: NATO held a defense ministerial this week, the first such meeting since Trump roiled the NATO summit in July. The hot topic at this week's meeting came to be the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty, which the United States and NATO have accused Russia of violating. The allegation was first levied in 2014, but the Trump administration increased the heat on its rhetoric this week. On Tuesday, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Kay Bailey Hutchison caused a stir by saying the United States could take out Russian missiles if Moscow continues to violate the treaty. After the Russian Foreign Ministry issued a furious response to Hutchison, she tweeted that she was not talking about preemptively striking Russia. Later in the week, Mattis called Russia's violation an untenable situation and said the United States was exploring diplomatic and military options to respond. Watch for North Korea news this weekend. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has left on a trip to Asia, where the marquee event will be his Sunday meeting in Pyongyang with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Stops on the trip also include Japan, South Korea and China. The main topic in each is also expected to be North Korea, though China could want to give Pompeo an earful about Pence's speech as well. This is Pompeo's first trip to North Korea since Trump canceled his planned visit in August. Pompeo is expected to discuss plans for a second summit between Trump and Kim. Speaking to reporters earlier this week, Pompeo would not comment on whether a declaration to officially end the Korean War will be discussed this weekend. "I'm not going to comment on the progress of the negotiations on the end of war declaration or any other items, only to say this: I'm very happy to be going back to get another chance to continue to advance the commitment that Chairman Kim and President Trump made back in Singapore in the second week of June," he said. "I'm optimistic that we'll come away from that with better understandings, deeper progress, and a plan forward not only for the summit between the two leaders, but for us to continue the efforts to build out a pathway for denuclearization," what the experts say. Speaking to reporters on a conference call Friday, the Center for Strategic and International Studies' Sumi Thierry said she expects the North Koreans will wait for the summit with Trump to do any real negotiating. In terms of Secretary Pompeo's upcoming trip, "I'm not sure if we're going to get a whole lot of progress there other than sort of the details of the next Trump-Kim summit," said Thierry, a senior fellow at the think tank. "I think North Koreans will try to save the actual negotiations for when Kim meets with Trump." In the same call, Victor Cha, the think tank's Korea chair, said Pompeo's goal needs to be to get more concrete commitments from the North Koreans. "I think that right now what's so important about this trip is I think they cannot come out of these trips anymore with broad statements of principles," he said. "There needs to be some actual, tangible movement on the nuclear issue. For example, while North Korea has said it would dismantle its Yongbyon nuclear facility if the United States takes a corresponding step, it's unclear exactly what it is prepared to do. If North Korea says we'll dismantle some aspect of the 5-megawatt reactor," Cha said, "I don't think that's going to be very satisfactory to most people who watch this closely, but if they were really to put on offer something much broader than that with regard to Yongbyon, I think the president could justifiably say that. All right, that's an important first step," Cha continued. "It's not declaration, verification and timeline, but it's an important first step. And most importantly, politically he can say it has gone beyond anything that past presidents have got. So, that I think in many ways is the bar." Pentagon, White House deny report on Air Force Secretary. Last night after overnight defense was sent out, the Pentagon and White House sent over statements denying a report that Trump is considering firing Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson over her handling of his Space Force proposal. "There is no discussion by the president to oust Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson. All reporting to the contrary is simply false," White House spokeswoman Lindsay Walters said in an email. In a separate statement, Chief Pentagon spokeswoman Dana White called the report nonsense. "The Department of Defense leadership team is focused on defending our great nation and working together to be worthy of the blood, treasure and faith entrusted to us by the American people," White added. On tap for Monday, Army Secretary Mark Esper will provide a keynote address at the opening ceremony of the Association of the United States Army's annual conference. The ceremony starts at 9:30 a.m. https://bit.ly/2k3ubdesemu-the Hill. Interpol president reported missing after China trip. The Hill. China hits back at Pence accusations of meddling in U.S. elections. The Hill. Afghan officials reject push to privatize war. The Hill. India agrees to $5 billion deal for Russian missile defenses amid U.S. threats. Reuters. War end declaration slippery slope for U.S. Korea presence. UN. Command General. Associated Press. Nobel Peace Laureates demand end to sexual violence in war. Defense news. On the campaign trail, defense spending fights and confusion. The Washington Post. The Pentagon is studying an insect army to defend crops. Critics fear a bioweapon.